Welcome to Zuxum Post. In contribution to efforts of getting the average Ghanaian closer to the laws of Ghana, Zuxum Post shares the following article of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Article 14. Protection of Personal Liberty. Protection of Personal Liberty. Clause 1. Every person shall be entitled to his personal liberty, and no person shall be deprived of his personal liberty except in the following cases and in accordance with procedure permitted by law. A. In execution of a sentence or order of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which he has been convicted, or B. In execution of an order of a court punishing him for contempt of court, or C. For the purpose of bringing him before a court in execution of an order of a court, or D. In the case of a person suffering from an infectious or contagious disease, a person of unsound mind, a person addicted to drugs or alcohol, or a vagrant, for the purpose of his care or treatment or the protection of the community, or E. For the purpose of education or welfare of a person who has not attained the age of 18 years, or F. For the purpose of preventing the unlawful entry of that person into Ghana, or of effecting the expulsion, extradition, or other lawful removal of that person from Ghana, or for the purpose of restricting that person while he is being lawfully conveyed through Ghana in the course of his extradition or removal from one country to another, or G. Upon reasonable suspicion of his having committed or being about to commit a criminal offense under the laws of Ghana. Clause 2. A person who is arrested, restricted, or detained shall be informed immediately, in a language that he understands, of the reasons for his arrest, restriction, or detention, and of his right to a lawyer of his choice. Clause 3. A person who is arrested, restricted, or detained, A. For the purpose of bringing him before a court in execution of an order of a court, or B. Upon reasonable suspicion of his having committed or being about to commit a criminal offense under the laws of Ghana, and he is not released, shall be brought before a court within 48 hours after arrest, restriction, or detention. Clause 4. Where a person arrested, restricted, or detained under paragraph A or B of clause 3 of this article is not tried within a reasonable time, then, without prejudice to any further proceedings that may be brought against him, he shall be released either unconditionally or upon reasonable conditions, including, in particular, conditions reasonably necessary to ensure that he appears at a later date for the trial or for proceedings preliminary to trial. Clause 5. A person who is unlawfully arrested, restricted, or detained by any other person shall be entitled to compensation from that other person. Clause 6. Where a person is convicted and sentenced to a term of imprisonment for an offense, any period he has spent in lawful custody in respect of that offense before the completion of his trial shall be taken into account in imposing the term of imprisonment. Clause 7. Where a person who has served the whole or a part of his sentence is acquitted on appeal by a court other than the Supreme Court, the court may certify to the Supreme Court that the person acquitted be paid compensation, and the Supreme Court may, upon examination of all the facts and certificates of the court concerned, award such compensation as it may think fit, or where the acquittal is by Supreme Court, it may order compensation to be paid to the person acquitted. Having read Article 14 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, let's look at an interesting portion of an essay, The Role of Civil Society in Promoting and Protecting Human Rights enshrined in the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. It was a lecture delivered at the Human Rights Training Program Quote, the role of civil society in promoting human rights therefore takes in this context a fundamental value. Beyond its role of monitoring respect for human rights, laws and their constitutionality, safeguarding lawful property, etc., civil society has a role to play as a force of change by mobilizing the people, a force for generating ideas with the support of experts and researchers, a force of empowerment of the citizenry, a force of promoting and awareness creation through education as the MCRC has done within this week, a force of protection of the rights of the marginalized and the poor in society. When one lacks awareness of one's rights and mechanisms available to enforce or address them, the ability to claim or defend these rights is weakened. Human rights education is therefore one of the key or core functions of civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, or human rights defenders. In fact, I regard this education aspect as the major role of CSOs and NGOs in the promotion and protecting of human rights. Human rights education entails teaching about human rights. Education about human rights creates awareness and information about human rights. For example, the citizenry must know about the inherent dignity of all people and their right to be treated with respect. The police and other law enforcement security agencies have been violating with impunity the rights of the marginalized and the poor. This includes the detention of persons arrested either lawfully or unlawfully beyond the constitutionally mandated period of 48 hours, unlawful arrest of persons who have not committed any crimes, example, arrest of debtors when police are not debt collectors, torture and other cruel, degrading and inhuman treatment of persons arrested, refusal to grant bail to persons who deserve to be admitted to bail upon arrest on flimsy excuses, violation of the rights of people, particularly workers, through overzealous reaction to peaceful protests and demonstrations guaranteed under the Constitution, etc. These are contrary to Article 15 on the inviolability of the dignity of man. There is therefore the need to educate the police and other security agencies to be abreast with the fundamental rights of citizens as enshrined in our Constitution, to give the rights a practical meaning. Respect for human rights by law enforcement agencies actually enhances the effectiveness of those agencies. This task is not beyond civil society organizations and NGOs, and they must take it up. Again, civil society can encourage the citizenry through education to participate in the decision-making process, a probability for people to freely choose their leaders. Aside of election observations, CSOs and NGOs should be able to mobilize and engage in pre-election campaigns to educate the people on their rights without any political biases, to insulate them from the deceit and lies and their possible dangers, violence and civil rife. Unquote. Here we come to the end of this post. Thank you for listening. Zuxun Post.